Hello there and welcome to part 12 of Aldous Huxley's Essays in Popular Science and Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World. I was reading about the process that the embryo goes through when they're being fed extracts of certain things. And I've done a little bit of research while I was away, just looking at the substances that they were being fed, because I wasn't sure exactly what they were, so it's quite interesting. One of them, and I'll probably pronounce it wrong, peritonium, or peritum, I don't know how it's pronounced. I looked it up, and basically, very basically trying to explain it, it's a membrane that forms the lining of the abdominal cavity, and it supports the abdominal organs and serves as a conduct for their blood vessels, lymph vessels and nerves, because that was one of the things that they were fed, wasn't it, that I described. Flaps of fresh sows, peritoneum, ready cut to their proper size, so they were being fed that. In this Bokanovsky process, and then later on we had they were fed other things like stimulated with placentin. So placentin, member of the insulin superfamily. So insulin's a hormone. Diabetics produced by the pancreas, isn't it? So that's another hormone that they're feeding him, which may, so this one, placentin, may play an important role in regulation of bone formation as well as other things. It is expressed in placenta, uterus, and in foetal something. So it's expressed in placenta and the I think it says uterus. So that's that. So it's connected to insulin. Another one was thyroxine. Shows here. Bear with me. It does mention thyroxine anyway. And thyroxine is a hormone of the thyroid gland that secretes into the bloodstream. So Julian Huxley was feeding his animal subjects thyroid gland as well as pituitary gland. So thyroxine there, you know, basically they're feeding them hormones. And the other one was corpus luteum, if I pronounce it right. Where does it say? Yeah, told them of the corpus luteum extracts, and corpus luteum extract. Corpus luteum, a hormone secreting structure that develops in an ovary after the ovum has been discharged. So you know, that's, yeah, the ovary. This is the endocrine system. This is the equivalent to the testes of the male. This is just a natural hormone that the female secretes, directly connected to the endocrine system. So they're feeding them hormones again. So I thought I'd bring that up. Another thing on clones, I was kind of 90% sure, 99% sure, but apparently twins are clones. They're identical clones. It makes sense, doesn't it? We went through that. And other organisms that produce clones, they can do it asexually, where offspring arise from a single organism, inherit the genes of that parent only. And Julian Huxley was talking about that very early on in his books when he was going into plants and bananas, something like that. He was talking about that kind of thing. Moving on briefly again to thyroxine. It's used to treat underactive thyroid. It replaces or provides more thyroid hormone, which is normally produced by the thyroid gland. So again, hormone kind of replacement thing there. Okay, so let's try and read on about the process that this Bonovsky process. I think that's right. What's it? Bovanovsky or something like that. Here we go about the sexes of each subject. So he's telling them here about the process. Told them of the tests for sex carried out in the neighbourhood of meter 200. Explained the system of labelling: a T for the males, a circle for the females, and for those who were designated to become free martins, a question mark, black on a white ground. So yeah, let's read on about the free martins, because I mentioned that. For of course, said Mr. Foster, in the vast majority of cases, fertility is merely a nuisance. One fertile ovary in 1200, that would really be quite sufficient for a purpose. But we want to have a good choice, and of course one must always leave an enormous margin of safety. So we allow as many as 30% of the female embryos to develop normally. The others get a dose of male sex hormone every 24 metres for the rest of the course. The result, they are decanted as free martins, structurally quite normal, except he had to admit that they do have just the slightest tendency to grow beards, but sterile, guaranteed sterile. Yeah, so that's interesting, the physically biological blurring of the sexes by adding the male sex hormone into a female, almost like a embryo or a uterus, introducing that hormone there to basically sterilise them. That is quite a big, powerful point there, because he was talking about how that he was getting used to the idea, wasn't he, Julian Huxley, of everybody has female and male characteristics in them, even biologically, but here they're really doing it against nature, against people's free will. And I've made a little link here, Determination of Sex, page 52, in Julian Huxley's work. Let's find that. I find it if I can. Bear with me. Yes, page 62, Determination of Sex. Little note here. I've read this, but let's go over it. Yeah, in insects, animals can be produced with the appearance and functions of one sex, but with their chromosome constitution proper to the other. Now, it's a bit more complex in humans and higher life forms, I think he was saying. I mean, this subject, this free martin, what they call, they are female, I guess, but they just dose with male sex hormones. Who, structurally, in the chromosomes, they're probably they're XX, let's say, but they've been dosed with male hormone to interfere with their fertility. And later on, reading from Determination of Sex, it says, indeed, it is quite possible that some sexually abnormal human beings are the victims of this sex-reversing power. He's talking about the mixing of the chromosomes. It may be possible, that they may be people that are, genetically, I guess, in the chromosome, maybe they are female or male. That's quite an interesting thing, isn't it? Maybe people who say that they are a man trapped in a woman's body, or vice versa. I don't know. Is there some kind of play on the the chromosomes there, the sex chromosomes? That'd be interesting to look at. Don't know if it's true or not, but so he goes on to the free martins, who are basically sterile now. So guaranteed sterile. So reading on, he says, which brings us brings us at last, continue Mr. Foster, out of the realm of the mere slavish imitation of nature into a much more interesting world of human intervention. And I'll put stroke scientific intervention with that one, biological intervention. And reading on, we also predestine and condition. We decant our babies as socialised human beings, as alphas or epsilons, as future sewage works, or future, he was going to say future world controllers, but correcting himself, said future directors of hatcheries. Kind of means the same thing, doesn't it? Yeah, so basically, whatever caste you're in, you are born into your caste, you're born into a job, and you'll do nothing else and be nothing else. And you won't want to ask to be anything else in the brave new world, because you're just programmed at birth, biologically altered before birth. So that's that. Here he's talking about how they create these lower castes, these epsilons, by basically mucking around with their oxygen supply to create these epsilons, which are the lowest of the low caste systems. They have absolutely no intelligence whatsoever because they don't need it. And I'm going to go into that in part 13.